Hello, I'm Jen.
And I'm Brittany, and we're the Village Homeschoolers, and today we're going to talk about all those rules we believe in that we still don't follow. Hi everyone, welcome to the Village. Today we're going to talk about hypocrisy.
And we're full of it.
And we are full of it. And as Jen said it before we hit record, we talk a lot of crap.
We do.
There is a lot of ideals. I think this is true of everybody about everything. We have said on this podcast and to our group of friends and our homeschool co-op in general, a lot of ideals that we think help people do the best they can without getting things like frustrated, burnt out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we don't always follow those ourselves. And I think we've got 4 of them today we're going to talk about. The 4 big ones that we don't follow ourselves. And it's super funny. So we've just finished a podcast talking about friendship. And half of Jen and my friendship is venting to each other and getting frustrated. And there's like about 15% of the time, one or the other, it depends on who it is and who's in the mood that day, will go, yeah, this is why we tell people not to do this. Because we're frustrated, we're burnt out, we're hurt, we're tired, we're upset, our feelings are hurt. And it's because they're one of these 4 rules that we don't follow. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Oh my gosh, I just gave someone this lecture yesterday too. I'm feeling really hypocritical. I think we have to understand that human beings are hypocritical sometimes, and it's to our own detriment. I don't think any of this is super hurtful for other people. Mm-hmm. I mean, other than sometimes I get frustrated with other people or you get frustrated with other people, and we need to check ourselves before we say something hurtful.
Yeah, to them. I don't care if you say it to me. It's a safe space.
Yeah. So anyway, I do think part of it is also our personalities. Well, we actually do this with each other, though, because sometimes we've gotten frustrated with each other or hurt each other's feelings because we're not following these rules.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's more rare than other people, but it does happen. But I think this is personality based for a lot. Jen and I are not laid back people. In case you haven't noticed. And everybody who knows us is dying laughing right now because laid back and us never happens. I think stress and personality are big factors here. And I don't want to talk about this too much, but trauma experiences are too. Because no one wants to talk about being triggered, but things are triggering.
Yeah, lots of things.
And there's been multiple times, thank God most of the time one of us is clear-headed because the other one's like, this is your trauma, blah, blah, blah.
Most of the time we have to actually... We're thankful when the other person's being rational because one of us cannot be at the time.
Yeah, as long as it's one of us. And
so, not us together because that would be bad.
Yeah, it might implode. Things would get ugly. Yeah, but I think there is trauma. I think there's everybody carries trauma into their situations, and they carry bad behavior and bad coping mechanisms into situations, and they carry insecurity and who we see ourselves as. Mm-hmm. We were talking about this last night, Jen and I. We both identify with this work ethic, I think, and it can get in our way when we are dealing with people who are not like us.
Yeah, where we are unable to ask for help. Is that what you're talking about?
Maybe, yeah. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. So when we break all this down, I think at the end of the day, the reason we don't follow these rules is who we are as people, who we see ourselves as people. Bad patterns, trauma, personality, stress. I think all that comes into play. So we are not advocating for this.
Yeah.
This does not make us happy.
We don't want to be this way. We just are.
Yeah. So when we laugh about it, because, humor is funny.
Yeah.
And
coping skill.
But it is something I think we need to talk about. And so, we're going to talk about the 4 rules we recommend for other people that we don't follow ourselves. So let's get going. First one. What do we tell people not to do, Jen?
Don't take it personally.
Don't take things personally. We take everything personally.
I tell Brittany this all the time, but I
do
it so much.
You are worse than me on this one. And we're going to get to some where I'm way more egregious than she is. But this is Jen's big one. We take everything personally. We take problems personally.
Attitudes personally.
This one is me too. There are situations that we are not involved in directly where we hear about people with hurt feelings and we still take it personally.
Yeah.
I'm really upset for that person. Now that is part of that, I think, is both Jen and I are empathetic people. So people we care about, we do not want to see hurt. Institutions we care about, our homeschool co-op, we do not want to see hurt.
Yes.
And we are both, as we've talked about in our personality, we're Enneagram 6s. So we're the big what if people. Like, what if this happens and then this happens? We think in terms of what ifs and problem solving. And so we take it personally.
Yes. And we also desperately want a safe space. So
right.
We want everything to be perfect, even though it's never that way.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I take people's feelings personally. I take their experiences personally. If there's a problem that happens, and I'll use an example for this. We are in the midst of a very successful but very busy co-op season. And there is a stressful part of our co-op day that we have tried to micromanage for the last 2 months. And I finally looked at Jen and at the other leaders and I said, this is beyond our ability as 4 of us to micromanage.
And it was miserable because I was taking it
miserable
so personally.
And we were taking it so personally, and it was very hurtful. I mean, there were literal tears shed between at least Jen and myself, and I think another party involved. And it was really miserable. And I was like, we are trying to do something that is not possible.
Yeah.
And we need to put the onus back on the other people involved, all of our community members, and say, you need to be self-policing, you need to be self-regulating, you need to own this responsibility, take it on and do what you can with it. And when we did that, it was a huge relief.
Yeah.
Emotionally. But then when we had to walk it out, oh gosh, it was horrible. I'd walk away. Another leader, not Jen, was sitting there going, I'm not supposed to say anything, right? I'm not supposed to say anything, right? To me. And I was like, right.
Yeah.
Like this isn't on us.
Yeah.
Let it go. So it wasn't our problem.
Yeah.
It wasn't. But we had fully taken it on. At least 3 of the 4 of us. And I think all 4 of us but before we all walked away and said, this isn't our problem, we can't take it personally.
Yeah.
So yes, it's hard. But it was physically painful for the last 6 weeks. Honestly, it was horrible. It was making us miserable.
So miserable.
And it was making us say things we did not mean. Just thank God to each other.
Yeah.
But it was,
I was getting real sassy.
Yeah, she was. So I think that is why we don't recommend doing that. But we do notice we do it. We do notice that.
We're humans.
Yeah, I will, and I just had this conversation with Jen. So I say it's funny that Jen does this, but I do it too. Because when somebody comes to me with a problem, I'm like, I got to fix it. It's my job. Even if it's not my job, like I said. And I will take things away and not let people solve their own problems in an effort to make it to solve it.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't think they're capable. It's that I took it personally. So I'm like, well, this is my job. I need to fix this because if I don't, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm a little bit of a control freak.
A little bit.
So yeah, it's like all the time. Jen's sometimes like, Brittany, just let me do it. And
no, because she's always white knuckling the steering wheel.
Yes.
And every once in a while I reach my hand over and she slaps it away.
And luckily Jen and I have a good relationship. So she can be like, listen, this is not cool. You need to let me help.
Yeah.
Except
calm yourself.
Part of that is I want other people to help. I don't want it to always be Jen or other leaders because I know they'll help.
I know you're not ill-intended.
I know.
But you mother me.
Yes, I
you don't want any bad feelings from me.
That's true, because I am a very loyal person.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
And so are you. And so we're like ride or die for people and our homeschool co-op and our group. So at the end of the day, we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
We're going to fix it.
And even if that means that we're miserable, as long as the other person isn't.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Which we have been doing for too long. But we'll talk about that. All right. This one is actually silly, but man, we've gotten worse at this one. We used to be better about this. And our rule number 2 is don't overdo it on a big day. And for that mostly means our big homeschool co-op days.
Yeah.
Don't overdo it. So for years. I was so good about this. I actually used to follow this rule. I would do homeschool co-op on Fridays, and I would go home and we would eat a frozen dinner. Or if my husband was home, we might even get takeout. And we would watch a movie. I didn't parent very much. I didn't do dishes that day. I'd do them the next morning. It was glorious.
Yeah, that is the way.
That was the way. And now you know what I do when I come home? I go to karate, and I sometimes go to take kids to dance lessons.
Oh, gosh.
And then we have podcasted after these busy days, which is ridiculous. I don't know. We're doing it today. We have a huge thing this afternoon.
Thanks to my husband.
Well, yeah. But,
that's a different podcast.
I just looked at it, and we have multiple parents' nights out on Friday evenings in our calendar. What the heck?
Yeah, Friday and then Saturday a parents' night out, which is great.
Yeah,
like, we're not complaining.
December,
but
there's multiple things on Friday nights after college.
Yes, like every week, which is, in a sense, is great.
It
but at
is
the
in a
same
sense
time, it's like so much.
It's so much, and it is...
Especially for us introverts, where I'm like, oh my God, I have 4 things on the calendar. I'm going to literally die.
Yeah, the introverts struggle, and we're sleep deprived, so it only gets worse. And it is stressful. Yeah, and I think, oh gosh, I don't know how I got in this thing. So my son is playing indoor soccer, and I actually looked at somebody yesterday and was like, if we get a Friday practice, we'll be okay. And I was like, what? Like, the other half of my brain was like, you dum-dum. What about your rule about, like, Fridays don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. You wouldn't even believe what we're doing next week. Next week, we have every day is a busy day.
Oh, yuck.
We didn't follow our own rules. I don't know. Are we going to get this one under control? Is it the age of our kids as they get older, you think?
I don't know. I think it's our co-op. I think everybody's really likes being with each other. So there's a lot of co-op-y things happening, right? Yeah. I tend to assume that's the case. We're loved.
Maybe. Well, and it could be a sense of personal responsibility because we feel like we need to go to as many things as we can.
That's
and
fact.
Not everybody else feels that way.
That's true. And then we argue who's going to what.
Draw straws.
I was like, your turn.
I saw Jen just RSVP'd from something, and I went, oh. And she goes, what? I said, you beat me to it. So now I got to go.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I should go. My kids will have a good time. But
Yeah, so they always do. It's just your tolerance for humans is a little higher than mine after a full busy week.
It is. I'm a little better than you are at that. But I still get freaking stressed out.
Yeah, well, that's because you overdo everything, Brittany.
Well, that's another thing that we're about to get to. And this is, I think, that I am the biggest offender on this.
Delegating?
Uh-huh.
Number 3.
Number 3. What do we break the most, Jen? Tell us what. Tell the worst. We're the worst offenders with this
Asking
rule.
for help.
Asking for help. Delegating tasks and asking for help. This is the number one thing we preach.
Yeah, and that we don't follow. We're so terrible at it.
We don't follow.
I mean, I want people to ask me for help, but I don't want to ask them.
It's super weird because I am like, this is how I build friendships is working on things with other people. And if you are not willing to put in energy, time, effort,
Gotta meet Brittany halfway.
that is my biggest judgment against other people. It is.
This is why she likes me, because I don't really ask her for things. Though I have a lot in the past week I feel really guilty about.
I want you to ask me for help, but I also feel like I need to work in a team, like a community. Like I'm a teamwork kind of girl. And if I feel like I've been lugging along too long, I start to get a little resentful. So,
oh my God, please tell me if I'm dead weight.
No, you're not. But so this is I'm the biggest offender. I have trust issues with a lot of other people. So I sit there and I don't delegate. I just say, I'll do it. And then I experience burnout and frustration with people that I should care about and do. Mm-hmm. But I am frustrated with them because I have trust issues and I don't ask a lot of people for help. I do ask Jen for help.
Very rarely.
I know. But I also feel like Jen and I both have this in common though. It's like this like work personal responsibility ethic. I think we were both raised this way. And it's like, I chose this. It's my job. It is not my neighbor's job. It is not anybody else's job. It's my job because I made this decision.
And I will suffer alone.
Yeah. I will not ask for help. I will not ask. And I had a friend call it the floating hand syndrome, where it's like, oh, so we need somebody to do this. And all of a sudden you're like, why am I raising my hand? And you keep raising your hand.
The story of your life.
But I feel like it's a big game of chicken in society often. And
I always lose at that game.
And I lose. And I'm like, fine, somebody's got to do it, so I'll do it.
Or like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. I've now, it's not a big deal myself into
a corner
where I've got all these other things. And part of it is that this is it's easier to say than do it, because sometimes if I ask for help, I have to teach somebody how to do the job.
Oh, is this like the time you made me MC and I had notes and you were still like, no, Jen. Yeah. But there were barely a voice that you had.
Yeah. And teaching somebody to do the job, if you've been doing the job for a long time, is more stress. It's another responsibility. I don't want to teach you. Just let me do it. It'll take me 20 minutes if I do it, as opposed to 2 hours if I have to teach you. So part of that is that. The other part is that input can be stressful. And when you bring another voice into the room and another opinion, and you have a certain way of how you think it's going to go, bringing input in can be stressful.
Yeah, like when we went from 3 leaders to 5, like, whoa.
Yeah.
That was,
even though you found that really stressful.
Yeah, and even though they're like lovely people, and most of the time we all agreed, but it was still like so many opinions that I was like, oh my God, I'm getting overwhelmed with voices.
She was just getting overwhelmed. And it's like, sometimes I really do value input, like talking about the bake sale that we're doing right now. That's not my forte. Fundraising, I actually hate it. I actually avoid it like the plague.
That's because we don't ask for help.
Right.
That's the same reason I won't.
And I'd rather just pay some exorbitant fee so I don't have to fundraise. That wasn't an option this time. I wish it was.
I know. I felt like I was embarrassed, literally embarrassed to like send out the flyer. Like, hey, you want to donate money? And everybody's like, yes.
Yeah. People love to support
And then
kids.
I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, why am I apologizing?
So I hate fundraising. And so we're doing this fundraising. So we have a couple other people that are helping us, and they're like, this is their jam. They're like, oh, I do bake sales for the library all the time. Oh, I do bake sales for music, a music foundation all the time. And I'm like, sweet. And so I value their input then when I don't feel. But when it's like, in my head, this is how I do it, this is how it works, this is my plan, and people come in with input, it can be very stressful for me. She
doesn't like my input usually.
I like your input.
Okay.
Okay. What do you mean? What have you given me input that I didn't like?
Sometimes I suggest things for co-op and you're like, I think it's because you think it's going to cause more work for yourself that you don't like it.
Oh, I'm trying to think of when you've done that.
It's been a while.
Okay. You should just stop giving me input.
Yeah. Or I just go, Brittany knows what the hell she's talking about. I'm going to trust her guidance on this one.
Maybe. I don't know if I know anymore sometimes. I'm the what if person too. So the other thing is I am extremely non-procrastination based. So if you come to me in the 11th hour with an idea, too late. I can't shift my focus, which you're the same way. So
my husband is very much a last minute kind of guy.
Right.
And then I freak out. And then I'm like, I freak out for Brittany because I was like, oh my God, you're going to stress Brittany out. And that stresses me out. I don't know why.
I know. And it was really funny. He walked up to me. He's like, Jen said this is going to stress you out. He asked me a question a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And it wasn't something that stressed me out.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So sometimes I'm fine. I feel worse for you because you have to live with that source of stress.
He's lovely, by the way.
Yeah, he is.
He's just a procrastinator.
But procrastination's really hard. So I have a hard time shifting my focus. So I often don't ask for input because I'm like, some of these people are going to give me input the night before. And I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like I need it 4 months out or I need ideas. Yeah. I also think people don't always have the backstory about why we're doing things this way. We had somebody make a suggestion about some of the chaos that was going on in co-op, and their suggestion was something we had done years ago, but they weren't in the co-op at that point.
Yeah.
And so we had to give them the backstory, and then when we gave them the backstory, they were like, oh gosh, don't do that. Don't listen to what I'm saying. I'm like, yeah. To be the carrier of the backstory into every scenario, I think is a burden. And so we're always putting our decision making through the filter of the backstory, and that can be super stressful too. And it keeps us from asking for help. And then, I mean, personally, this is an issue though. It's personally an issue. It's not just our co-op. I don't ask for childcare help unless I'm absolutely forced to.
Yeah, I know. Me either.
People who have brought me food do it unwilling, like do it against my own will. Like they put food on my doorstep, like, and the two of you know who you are.
Yeah. It wasn't me because I asked multiple times and she said no. And I was like, am I going to stress her out if I bring her food? I will.
Well, and then I
don't
felt
know.
bad because I should have made dinner for Jen yesterday, and I told her not, and she was like, "Thank God you didn't. I would have died."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah," but like when my husband was really sick, like I got a text and it was like, "There's soup coming your doorway," and I said, "Don't worry about it." And they were like, "I'm a minute and a half from your house. It's
You have
too
to
late."
take it. Yeah.
And so they like left soup and shepherd's pie on my doorway because
They're lovely.
They
And
know.
they know.
And yeah, and they know how I am, but I just don't do it. I don't ask for help. Again, that bizarre sense of personal responsibility. This is my husband, so I will live with the fact that he's in the hospital.
Yeah.
I had these kids. They're my responsibility.
Yeah, I will not push them off on anybody. And I'm very much the same way. I had such a hard time. I didn't know Brittany when my son was really little. And I had one, I'm going to call her a friend, but she wasn't really. I asked her to watch him, and she complained the whole time. And ever since then, I would not let my child go to anybody. So if I had a doctor's appointment, I would literally drive my child to my mom's house in New Jersey, 3.5 hours away, so I could go to a doctor's appointment. Like, is that absurd?
That's absurd. But that's like...
Because that's how I am, because I do not like asking for people. I don't like inconveniencing anybody.
Right.
Except my mom, apparently.
Well, I know, and moms are different. Like, my mom flew up here for me to have an appointment, a procedure once.
Yeah, see?
And she lives like 22 hours away by car.
And any one of us will do whatever for you, right?
So my little one was like 18 months old, and he was a handful, and I was like, I can't do this to anybody else. But he'll stay with my mom. So we bought my mom a plane ticket to fly up here.
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
I will not inconvenience anybody ever.
Right.
And so my instinct is always to like find something else to do with my child. And you will be like, Patrick will watch him. It's not a big deal. And I'm just like, are you sure?
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, it's really not a big deal.
Yeah.
I actually had, and if I have to draw a boundary, which happens so rarely, this is so funny. I have had to draw a boundary recently, and it was on a group text, and Jen was on the text, and I had to text her individually and say, I'm not talking about you.
Oh. Always.
Like legit, like I was like, no, I'm not talking about you.
Yeah, because I immediately go into, I'm so sorry.
I was
What did
like-
I do to inconvenience you, Brittany?
Yeah. And like, she doesn't do anything to inconvenience me. Like, it's not a big deal. And it's super funny. We've talked about this before. People see me as a very open person. I'm actually very guarded around a lot of people. I'm not guarded with Jen. So once you're past the wall,
She lets you all in.
I'll, where's the body? Let's dig the hole. No, I mean, but it's, so I have to but I also know Jen's paranoid about it and doesn't ask for help. So I have to like clarify that you are not an inconvenience to me.
But I'll still apologize even though I didn't do anything wrong.
I know.
Should have been Canadian.
Midwestern. We should have been Midwestern. Our Midwestern friends are the best. Although oddly proud of Ohio. I don't know. Shout out to all our Ohio friends. We've decided you are the proudest of your state people we've ever met.
And we don't know why.
But we're not from Ohio, so we can't.
I guess we can't appreciate it.
Yeah, but
from the outside.
We were talking about this with some of our co-op families who are from Ohio and how proud they are to be from Ohio, and So shout out to our Ohio people. You guys and your Ohio pride are something to behold. But yes, so it's All right, last rule. The last rule. I think this is a 50-50 for us. Who do you think is the biggest? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Our last rule that we break all the time, and I am the biggest preacher of this, is to always assume good intent. You think you're worse at this than me?
I don't know. I try to convince you that people have good intent, and then you...
Well, so here it is with me. I assume good intent until a point, and then I'm done.
And then she can never be convinced otherwise.
Yep. And I think I assume good intent early on, and you don't.
Yeah.
And then later on, I'm done, and you're like trying to reel me back in to my old beliefs of assume good intent. So,
well, once I love somebody, I just assume they're fantastic all the time. So that's, I think, part of it. It's like, I do know that they're good people, right?
Yeah. This is the other thing. I think I hold on to the belief that good people can have bad intents. Is that, including us all of the time, I guess.
I'm always good intention, Brittany.
I know. Well, you are to me. Yeah. I try. Yeah. Anyway, so I assume good intent, and this is really hard. We can go back to the trauma. Let's talk about the trauma, right? When you have trauma, and you have stress, and you haven't slept in days, or you have pain, or whatever, all of a sudden it becomes a lot harder to not take anything personally.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's interesting. So Jen and I approach this one differently. Jen approaches it early on with people. She struggles to trust. I'm much more trusting off the gate, and I assume most people have good intentions.
I do assume everybody has bad intention, which
You
is
do? Yeah.
because that's my experience in the world.
No, that's the trauma. That's why so it was super funny. Like we had Jen had an interesting situation that I heard about later, and I was able to be the third party removed because I was not there when it happened, and I was able to be very like, and I was like, okay, I can see what was happening here, but in the moment, Jen was like, this person is horrible. Where I was like, that person is probably not horrible. That person is probably stressed, not a good communicator. Blah, 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 on down the line. Because I wasn't there.
Are you talking about the lady yelled at me?
Yes. The stranger that yelled at Jen.
If you want to automatically make me cry, yell at me. Yes, FYI.
But again, and so in our very late night, Friday night decompressing that Jen and I do.
Brittany therapy, my son calls it.
We talked about Jen's childhood trauma and the fact that this is why she reacts this way to things. So yes, Jen in the beginning struggles to have good intent. I assume good intent of everybody. And then I get to a point where I start to feel abused. I don't know. What would you call it, Jen? What do I feel at the end?
I don't know, abandoned? I don't even know. You just, I can't convince you that.
I start to struggle.
Yeah.
If I feel personally hurt.
Yes. And you don't understand the situation.
If I don't understand the situation.
On a personal level.
On a personal level.
And you're usually good about this because you can, well, for me at least, you make excuses all the time for my bad behavior.
Well, okay, Jen, that's like her bad behavior. Like, she's not, yeah. But I think it is, yeah, I don't know. I have a certain place where I get a little cranky. And I think it's just personal feelings. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about the trauma. I think it's, what is your issue? What is your life stance? And like, where do you want people to feel when they're with you? This is my big one. And I think you're like this too. We've just done a podcast about female friendships. Friendships and inclusivity are super important to me. Mm-hmm. And if I feel like gatekeeping is happening, I immediately get aggressive. For instance, there was a situation, we have encountered co-ops, and we are not saying this judgmentally. We have encountered co-ops that do entrance interviews to get into them. And in a stressful time, we were trying to figure out how to streamline new people into our co-op. This came up as an idea. And I lost my ever-loving mind.
I think you terrified the other leaders.
And I had to come back and apologize and say, you have to understand that my life, I never want people to feel I'm putting up barriers to them belonging to a community that they need. I will never be the gatekeeper. And if that is happening in any organization I belong to, I will leave. You have a right to make that decision as a group, but for me, that is how I live my life, is I want people to find what they need in a community that we have created. And so that is just one of my ride or die beliefs.
Yeah.
And
you were very passionate about that.
I was like, at no point am I ever going to be comfortable with humans subjectively judging other humans.
Based off how well they quizzed.
Right, or interviewed or anything. I said, because that will not work for me. And the other person that suggested it was just putting ideas out there, trying to problem solve. She didn't actually
want to gatekeep, right?
Right. And she was like, no, you're right. But I flew off the handle. So I think you bring, I don't know why I have that trauma. I don't know. But that's my thing. It's like you and anyway. So I think that is part of it too. I think that is, we have certain beliefs or certain morals or certain things that we carry into situations. Mm-hmm. And when that comes up, we just all of a sudden we're going to assume good intent is gone.
Well,
I knew that person had good intentions by even putting that into the conversation, but I was done. Like, nope.
Yeah. Well, and we spend a lot of time being so inclusive. Like we spend
Right.
a lot of our own mental resources
Right.
making sure everybody feels comfortable and feels like they belong. And
Right.
to put something out there was,
Right.
yeah.
It was hard. I also think it's super easy when you're not involved to realize harm that was caused. Let's talk about emotional harm, because I think that's most of what's going on here. It was accidental. Mm-hmm. But when it's you, it feels intentional.
Yeah.
So, like, I am currently dealing with a situation where I feel like things are intentional. And Jen's like, are you sure the person realizes they're even doing it? And I'm like, no, I don't think they're really doing it. But I don't care, because it feels hurtful.
Yeah.
It's hurting me. And so I think it's really hard when it's you being hurt. Just like Jen was hurt by this stranger who yelled at her.
Yeah.
It felt personal.
When I should have been like, it's fine. Some
woman
old
was-
angry lady.
The woman was stressed out and confused and not a good communicator. And
Or a good person, probably.
see, there we go. And Jen just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. But Jen immediately went to, this woman is a psycho.
Yeah.
And wants to hurt people. And I was like, I honestly think she was just not good at these things, and you happen to be standing there, Jen. But I wasn't there. So it's easy for me to assume good intent.
Yeah.
Where I've been on the other end of the situation I'm currently in, and I'm not assuming good intent. Like, I'm just like, this is hurtful. Why does nobody see this is hurtful?
Yeah. Maybe I need to, I don't know. Maybe it was my not background in church.
Yeah, you weren't raised in a
Religious home.
religious home. I don't think it has anything to do with that, though, because I was. And
Yeah.
I'm still doing it too in my situation. Yeah. So I do think it is when people are hurt, it's hard to assume accident, even if in all logic points to, oh, this was an oversight, this was accidental, this was not intentional. It's hard not to. Your body is like, this is intentional. People are hurting you.
And remember we did that Elizabeth episode, and she was just talking about, like, I was talking about how I need to have some kind of closure and any kind of interaction, or I assume the person is evil and wants to hurt me. Yep. And I never had any closure from that because that lady told me to leave. She yelled at me. So
Right. Yeah.
I will forever hold a grudge to that person because of that.
Yeah. Right. Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's not you. Maybe because I get that. I get that too. Like, once the trust is broken, it's very hard for me to go back. Mm-hmm. And yeah. And this is the other thing, like, so assuming good intent, I have a hard time letting people work things out on their own and assume they can do it. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, people are hurt. Even if I'm the third party in the situation, I want to fix it.
Yeah, you do this a lot. Wow, yeah.
I worry about people's feelings.
Look how introspective you are.
I know. Well, it's that what if personality. I worry about people's feelings. And so I don't trust them to have good intent and work it out on their own. Which may be because, okay, so my background's in communication. And I will say this is stressful as a human being. I kind of wish I'd gotten different degrees, because I can walk around and I'm that person that can watch two people communicate and go, they aren't understanding each other at all.
But I feel like I'm terrible at it. Like, I feel like I'm always stepping in. I'm always insulting somebody. That might also be my background and my trauma.
Well, but then you are able to read body language pretty well, I think. So then you see people react and you go, oh gosh, I'm sorry.
That's why I'm always just
You're
saying sorry.
a big apologizer. Like, I actually trust you to fix situations much better than I trust most people.
Yeah.
Because I think you read body language okay. I think you're a better communicator than you think.
Well, I'm also really good at, I don't mind stepping in it and realizing I did something wrong and apologizing. I think a lot of people don't like to admit that they were wrong.
Right.
That's all true. I do.
Oh, gosh. That's society's issue. Yeah, so I think that's part of it too, is like I see situations and I read the room too much. So then I'm like, ooh, this is gonna be bad. Person A is just insulted person B. Person B doesn't realize it. Or person A doesn't realize it. Person B is now putting up a wall. They're not listening to what person A is saying anymore. And I think we've all been there, where it's like, you hear somebody retell a story and you're like, I was there. That's not what happened. Right?
Yeah. Because now we're inferring feelings and other.
Right. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
But that's not actually what the person said or did. And I think I see that a lot. And that is why I struggle to assume good intent and that people can work things out on their own.
Yeah, I know, and it's probably what happened when I got yelled at.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in my head, she was screaming at me, and Elizabeth was like, she was nasty.
She was stressed out.
Yeah,
and
she was very rude, but
rude, but it wasn't at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was about to throw a table at her.
She was going full Jersey, full Jersey. I know. It's an interesting thing. And listen, I think we need to say here, I don't like that I don't follow these rules. My life would be a lot easier.
Wouldn't it? Oh my gosh, yeah.
I would be I'd have a lot less on my plate, first of all. Second of all, I would be a happier person.
I think it's probably bad that we both are bad at this, all of these.
Yeah. I also think it means, there's this whole thing. I was reading this whole thing about, you high energy firstborn. I know you're not a firstborn, but high energy firstborn females that, ruled the classroom and ruled, you do all these things and you're the teacher's pet and everything. Actually, that's called anxiety. The world loves you and you're very productive, but that's because you're anxious. And that is, I believe, very true. Knowing myself, I think I am a highly intense person and I get a lot done, but it's because I don't follow these rules. And I don't know if that's good. I mean, maybe to some extent. My husband always like, you just need to relax. I'm like, I can't relax. I got to get too much done.
I'm bad at relaxing as well.
Yeah.
I can, but
it's rare for me. I did it last night. I sat for like an hour and a half.
Look at you.
I know. And ate something I wasn't supposed to eat. I was so hungry and I was so stressed out.
Yeah. And we were running around all day.
Yeah. And the day had been full. But
we had good excuses.
I know. So listen, when I preach this and when Jen preaches this, we mean it.
We want you to follow this.
We want you to because we're miserable because we don't. No, not miserable all the time, but it is. It
is leading to burnout in our situation.
And stress.
Yes.
Yes, it is burnout and stress, and it's a common thread in our lives, and I think we could trace it to these 4 rules that we believe in but do not follow.
Yeah. Yes.
Anything else on that? Jen's face says so much right now.
No, I'm just gonna. I've been told we don't sell our job very well. Everybody's like, that sounds real miserable, and I was like, it's not.
I've not been told that, but I think you've been told that for a reason, Jen.
I'm generally not miserable.
No, it's not. I think we can make ourselves miserable by not following these things.
Yes.
We should stop taking everything personally.
Mm-hmm. I should. I can't, though. I cannot.
I know. So listen, therapy, it's important.
Thanks.
To all of us.
Subtle hints here.
No, it's you. I mean, we're all working on ourselves, and I think you got to assume good intent and assume some grace, even though I struggle with that. But yeah, I think it is an interesting thing that we'll talk about. And I think there's elements of society that do not allow certain personalities, Jen and me, to do this. And I think we have a podcast coming up about that in the near future. We just need to be ready to talk about that yet and tick off everybody who listens to us. Because we're going to say, I don't know.
What are we going to say, Brittany?
We'll talk about it. No, I'm kidding. Controversy coming up next week. No, no, it's not. All right. Thanks so much. We'd love to hear what rules you don't follow. Are you in a homeschool group? Are you in a community or a church or something like that? Do you find yourself taking on things that you shouldn't be taking on because you don't follow a personal rule you believe in? We'd love to hear from you. You can find us at Instagram, Facebook, or at thevillagehomeschoolers@gmail.com. Thanks so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.